Hey there, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. As always, we're excited to spend time with you wherever in the world you might be. One thing we love about podcasting is the opportunity to reach people who could use genuine support in all kinds of places of the world.
Right.
In fact, we recently heard from a listener over in the UK who left a review on Apple Podcasts saying that the show is hugely helpful and accessible, and that they highly recommend it for those blending at any stage. Ray of Sunshine, hey, thanks so much for that feedback, and we're so grateful to be supporting you from way over here in the Pacific Northwest.
Absolutely.
Now, if you haven't had a chance to leave us a rating or a review wherever you listen from, we would so appreciate you doing that now. Just hit the 5-star rating while you're listening, or share a review on Apple Podcasts, or maybe even leave a comment on any episode over on Spotify. We would love to hear from you. All right, honey, what are we jumping into today?
Well, today we're joined by Brian K. Peterson.
Yoo-hoo!
He's a husband, dad, and stepdad who understands that blending a family means coming together mid-story, especially when it comes to money. He's the founder of Blended Family Financial, where he works with step-family couples who want to move from financial tension to shared clarity and direction. Brian created the Planning Built for Life process to help couples have better conversations about money and build something intentional together.
That's great. And Brian and his wife, Kara, are passionate about building a strong blended family and helping others do the same. He's also the upcoming author of Blended Family Finances, How to Talk About Money, Plan for the Future, and Build a Life You Love. So we're so excited to share our conversation with Brian because we know that money is not only complicated, but it's emotionally charged.
Oh, yeah.
And for all of us, our core beliefs about money, how we allocate it, and what it represents in our family are things we don't talk about nearly enough. So buckle up, because right after the intro, we're jumping straight in with Brian. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, hey, Brian, welcome. We are so excited to have you on the show today.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we are too. We're excited to share this new book and new thing that you got coming out. But first, before we jump into all that, I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of a background, like tell us a little bit about your blended family story and what you've been up to and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a blended family. So I was an ours baby. Both my parents were divorced when they came together, had me and my sister. And then they divorced again from each other when I was 5. And they have both been remarried now for like 30 years. So third time's a charm, I guess, for them. So I've had this whole experience of like half siblings, stepdad, stepmom my entire life. And I remember it always being kind of awkward as a kid when you'd have to describe your family, you know?
Sure.
But until Kara and I got married in 2020, we had a COVID wedding. And then that's when I became the stepdad. I brought 3 kids from my first marriage, and she brought in 2 kids from her first marriage. And that's when it kind of hit me how different it is from an adult perspective to have to, you have this responsibility to be a husband and a father and a stepdad and lead this household. It was kind of a whole different perspective from my youth, but so we've been together since 2020. Our kids my youngest is a junior in high school, and then my stepdaughter is about to graduate college, and the other three have already graduated college. So,
Okay.
we kind of came together right when they were graduating high school and stuff.
Mhm.
But it was a good opportunity we still had some time to blend a little bit, you know.
Sure.
Mhm. Now, leading up to that, you kind of had a career in finance. Is that right?
Yeah, before I started that in '08, I was a career changer. And
Yeah.
started as a financial advisor in 2008.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the great financial crisis or what have you, which is interesting time to start.
I bet.
But yeah, and I've been doing that ever since.
Okay. So you're coming up on a couple of decades here in just 2 years.
Yeah, now you're aging me, Mike.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I remember 2008 as well.
Yes.
Yeah, don't feel too aged, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about that I've been doing it for that long.
Mhm.
And I love it. It's been an interesting path. And, you mentioned the book and
Mhm.
really diving into blended family. When
Yeah.
Kara and I got married, or actually when we got engaged, we were very intentional about what we were going to do. We recognized that, what, this is different,
Mhm.
and we want to be thoughtful and intentional about what we're doing. And part of
Mhm.
that was the finance piece. And it was interesting as we had conversations, I decided I went out to look who does this. What
Right.
financial planners out there do this? And I couldn't find anybody, and I was
Mhm.
shocked because it's just so complex and
Mhm. Yeah.
and so needed. And
Yeah. When you say
Yeah.
who does this, meaning who specifically works with the unique dynamics of blended families around blending their finances. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
that's exactly
Yeah.
what I mean. Yeah. And puts themselves out there. And that really started that journey for me that
Maybe I could do this.
yeah, and because I've always had this life-centered approach to planning, and we'll
Right.
talk a little bit about that. I was awestruck that there was nobody really committed to doing that, and
Hmm.
Yeah.
so
So now,
here I am trying to figure this out. Like I got a plan for that. We can do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So now you're about to launch a book, and actually a brand has recently launched
Yes.
all about blended family finance. Is that right?
Yep. Blended. So the book will be Blended Family Finances, how to talk about money, plan for the future, and build a life you love.
Hmm.
Um, and it really just walks through my process, and I share some stories of some of my personal stories for
Yeah.
both, in my first marriage and about my blend with Kara. And
Hmm.
she's read all of it and approved
Hmm.
what I share.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad you got the stamp of
Yeah.
approval from
Gotta
Carlos.
have that.
Yeah.
But then I also just share some other stories.
Yes.
I do it through a fictional couple that I call
Mhm.
Bob and Amy, but they're
Yep.
real life stories that I've either worked on directly or experienced somehow, to try
Hmm.
and put things into context.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and then Blended Family Financial is the new brand that we're
Awesome.
launching because I want people to be able to find this and know that there's help out
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we
Yeah.
want people to be able to find you as well. Sometimes, Kim and I work with couples and finances comes up. In fact,
Oh, yeah.
often finances comes up and we're like, we're not financial advisors. Like we can talk about relationships,
Yeah.
but we're not financial
Yeah.
advisors. So having a partner to help with that is powerful.
Yeah. And there was a quote in your book. We've read a piece of the book and we're really excited to read
Yep.
the rest of it when it comes out. But there was a quote in your book that I just want to highlight because it really stuck with me. It says, managing money in a blended family feels so different. You're not just managing a budget and investments, you're navigating histories, loyalties, expectations, fears, and dreams, often across multiple households and relationships, all at the same time.
Hmm.
So it's very different than a
It is.
first family marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's expand on that a little bit, Brian. Why are money conversations, Kim just listed a few things in the quote there, but why are they so much harder in blended families than in first marriages?
Yeah, I think let's take a step back first for a second and just recognize that each of us has a relationship with money. Okay.
Mm.
A lot of times we don't think of it that way, right? Money just kind
Mhm.
of comes and goes in our life. We go work for it, we spend it. Um, but really over time and from childhood all to your first before to your present marriage and relationship, you're building and learning lessons about what makes money important. And it's different for all of us. So we have to start there, right? So we have this relationship. Blended families makes it more complex because of everything that you just listed in that quote, right?
Yep.
We
Right.
have so many more people into the mix. And I like to
Mm.
say, I think a little bit earlier in that chapter, I talk about coming together mid story. We don't get a
Yes.
clean slate,
Mhm.
right? We don't just magically divorce or lose our spouse or our partner to death and suddenly we get to start over.
Mm.
Everything that was part of our life up to that point comes with us. It's part
Yeah.
of who we are.
Mhm.
And unless you've found your carbon copy, your spouse has something different that shaped and forged them. And
Mm.
so how do we bring that together? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's just with the couple. Now you bring in kids,
Yeah.
your ex-spouse,
Mhm.
the grandparents.
All of
There's a
it.
there's just a lot of influence that comes into a blended family that those first marriages just don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You come in with a different starting point, like you said, and also prior commitments,
Mm.
around money, the
Mhm.
financial obligations.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah, different starting points is a huge thing because it's, you might one of you might have received child support. The other one might be paying it,
Right.
Hmm.
or alimony, vice
Yep.
versa.
Mhm.
You just have very different obligations that come in that you can't ignore, right? Because
Right.
they're there, they're going to be there. So how do we deal with those situations?
Yeah, that's a really great question. How do we deal with those situations? Because a lot of times, blended families, the couples feel this pressure to sort of quote unquote get it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that how do we get away from that fear or pressure based decision making to thinking through this with a little bit more purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we accept that we have a relationship with money. We first have to identify what that is, right? And in my process later in the book, we go through how to do that.
Hmm.
But there's another thing that influences us, and that's society, right? We give money inadvertently a lot of power, and it's everywhere.
Yes.
And it tends to be, I refer to it as a scoreboard. That's how we treat money, as a scoreboard. Is it going up or down today? Right.
Hmm.
And that can cause us to prioritize the future and just
Hmm.
saving over today.
Yeah.
It leads to a number of problems, but that's a fear-based reaction, right? Well, I have to make sure that I'm going
Yeah.
to be okay. And never really understanding how do we find a balance between that,
Mm.
because
Mm.
we've
Yeah.
we've never taken the time to really evaluate why money is important to us. What does it provide for me as an individual, but then also for my spouse? Because the
Mm.
chances are it's going to be different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, ideally, there's some overlap,
Mm.
but there's definitely going to be differences. And so,
Yeah.
how do we do that and bring that together as a couple?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, at kind of that high level, I hear you talking about we're in that more survival or protection mode. I just got to save and make sure I'm okay.
Mhm.
You use a word sometimes, I think I saw it in there around intentional design. How do you
Yes.
actually make that shift to step back and say, well, What are we intentionally designing as a blended family couple when it comes to our finances?
Yeah, instead of just being in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think what you're referring to, I was kind of, if we go back and look at our relationship, so I'll use me as an example. I was married for 14 years. Is that right? Yeah, 14 years.
Mhm.
And then it was gone, right? I had 3 kids, and then suddenly in 2012, we decided to divorce. And then I'm on my own, but it's not on my own because I have 3 kids and I still have my ex who is co-parenting with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so suddenly it becomes this mode of protection and survival and just
Mhm.
getting by where you have to relearn independence, right? Before you had somebody that you could count on, hopefully.
Yeah.
In my case, that was how it was. And so suddenly it's just this upheaval. And so we learn to protect. And when the kids are involved, that protection comes in big time, right? That
Huge.
sense of protection, especially when you start dating again. And I think we
Mhm.
can actually, you had it in a podcast, one of your episodes. Oh, it slips my mind. But they talked about the inner vows that we make. Chad and Jadelle. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's from a couple
That's
months
right.
ago.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's very real, and that can drive us forward. Which can bring out that fear. And so how do we make that shift from there to being intentional about what we're doing? And you have to make the choice to do it, right? You have to decide that this time can be different, not because it's a different relationship, but because you're going to do it differently and you're going to do it intentional, right? I think too many times we go into this relationship, just assume that it's with a different person, so it'll automatically be different. But we forget that we're bringing in our old past, our old habits that will come up. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we need to deal with that head on? Okay. And really come together and choose to do it. So this entire process is about choice. If you're willing to seek understanding, you can find unity together as a couple that honors both the individuals, but also this new entity, the marriage and the family that you're building.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we both have to choose to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you just mentioned the word unity. Can you kind of describe what is a united financial vision and why is it especially important for blended families to have that?
In financial planning, traditional financial planning, usually what we think of are the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think of a unified vision. Your unified financial vision is it's your shared declaration of what you're actually building. Okay. And we have a process to get to that so that it has a good foundation that represents both of you and your family. But it is that shared declaration of what you're working towards. It's the why. Why are we saving money? Why are we spending money? What are we trying to build together? And so it is the first stop in financial planning, in my view. That's how we get out of what I call the rat race, that money rat race of always just chasing more, right? We got to step back and define what we're actually trying to build.
Yeah, I would imagine that would also reduce a lot of conflict around money if you have sat down and made decisions, answered those why questions you just brought up. Then instead of arguing about where money's going and who's spending what, you have an agreement already in place.
Exactly. You're pre-deciding when you're at a place of relative peace. That's how I like to describe it,
I
right?
like that.
If you're at a place of relative peace where you can actually you desire to seek understanding with one another, why we decide or make choices the way we do, then you're already doing all of the hard work. When we leave those things unspoken, and I've heard you guys talk about this, unspoken expectations, right? We all have them,
Yeah.
but this is how do we get ahead of that game while we're in a good spot so that when a situation comes up, it doesn't blow up on us. I call that the marital minefield, right? It's those little things that are hidden out there, and we all have them.
Sure.
Okay. But we're pre-deciding on how we want to deal with it and getting out ahead of it.
Yeah. So then we can avoid some of those minefields because we all know that money is emotional.
Yep.
We have to understand the emotions. You use a term too called emotional math that's at play.
Right.
That no spreadsheet can calculate. I love that.
Yeah.
That's very true.
What
Isn't that
feels
true?
fair to, yeah, it's so true. What feels fair to one person may feel threatening to another. I'm reading straight out of the book here. Treating everyone equal sounds great in theory, but rarely works in practice. We see that over and over.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this is magnified when you come together from different starting points.
Which you just shared.
Yeah, and so then we have these emotions that come up, right? We have guilt, we have
Right.
shame, we have fear of failure. We want to protect, like you said, and then that drives these silent decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got to talk about these things.
Exactly. And if we can the earlier you can do that, the better, right? And again, from a place of peace is much better than trying to
Yes.
deal with it in the fire, right? Because then you're just, I don't know about everybody else, but then I tend to try to score points. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've learned better, but there's that tendency, right? Because
Sure.
some of us just want to be right, and in that moment. So that was a little bit for Kara. We're not quite like that, but it does, it can happen when that emotion comes up.
Yeah, and a lot of us have been burned around money in our past relationships. And then that leaves us feeling guarded, and we don't want to give up control. We don't want to lose control because we've been hurt in the past.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about scoring points there. That was a little different than the scoreboard you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We treat money like a scoreboard, right? How does that scoreboard mentality end up creating tension inside of a marriage? Like why can't we just treat it like a scoreboard?
Yeah, I think I see a couple different things of how people handle the scoreboard. Some people find it comforting, right? I think I said this right in the book, because it feels like you have this sense of control. It goes up, it goes down. I put more in, and you get this sense of control around it. For others, it makes them very anxious because they feel like they don't have any control over it, ironically, right? So you can get these, and when those two come together in a couple, that can be powerful, right? But sometimes you get both or somebody in between. When you treat it like a scoreboard, if we look beyond the accounts, right, just going up or down, or the markets going up and down, now we start looking at what did my kid get versus your kid, or little Johnny's always the favorite. He gets whatever he wants, but my daughter needs this, And so you fall into this trap of starting to compare and contrast one another and who's getting what. And if you haven't figured out that unified vision, what you're actually trying to build together and why, this is a very easy trap to fall into, that it's just magnified in blended families.
Yeah. So I hear you saying that, boy, when we keep that scoreboard mentality, it leads us more to competition. Whereas when we have that united financial vision, now we're talking collaboration.
Exactly. And instead of building up the scoreboard, we're building our life.
Yeah.
which ultimately that's what we all want. We just haven't really been shown how to do it.
Yeah, I love that.
Which also includes, hey, what do we want for your little Johnny and for my
Yes.
little Sally?
Yeah,
What do we
exactly.
want for everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And then if we
Yeah.
kind of expand that out a bit, when we're so focused on the scoreboard and tracking the scoreboard and so invested in that, well, then of course life throws you a curveball and you have all these unexpected things happen, such as a big legal battle in the courts. That
Yeah,
was
that
a
was our
huge issue for us. Or the person that's supposed to be paying child support suddenly quits paying child support, and now you've got to
or
scramble.
can't for some reason.
Can't, yeah.
Right.
So there's all kinds of things that can change. And then if you're so invested in the scoreboard, now what happens?
Right. And those things are completely out of your control. And so if you're
Exactly.
somebody who really thinks the scoreboard gives you some control, suddenly that dream becomes shattered because life just doesn't line up perfectly like we want it to unfold.
So along that line of thinking there, Brian, when life doesn't unfold as planned, there's a job loss. We've got divorce history that's coming up, like Kim just mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh boy, now we're back in court. There's grief, there's co-parenting, stress, those kinds of things. How do couples figure out a way to build financial unity anyway? What are some principles?
Yeah. So hopefully we've already addressed some of that, but let's assume we're starting from scratch. The first thing is we need to just step back and recognize what we control. Okay. And it's surprisingly less than we think. Okay. There's a lot of influences that are outside of our realm of control. Okay. And we have to accept that fact. Until you do, you can't really identify what you have to deal with. Okay. And what you have to change. Okay.
Mhm.
But first, so I start with the couple all the time. The couple is the center of this process because they're the grounding force. So we have to go back to what do they want to have happen. So if we lose, let's say we lose child support from one of our co-parents.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's an impact, right? That doesn't necessarily change what we want for our kids. Okay, so we have to bring that in. Does it need to? Because financially, we might not be able to meet the same vision and hope we have for the time, right? The one important thing you got to understand is that this process and financial life in general is about seasons. Everything happens in seasons. So for this season, we may need to make some adjustments. The unified vision isn't a destination. Okay. It's a direction. Okay. It's a North Star about where we're heading. And it's intentionally that way because life will zig when we want it to zag.
Right.
And so by having it as a directional guide for us, it helps keep our heart grounded as to what we're trying to achieve. And recognizing that in this season, we've lost child support, for example, then we might have to make some adjustments. And that comes later on, but our direction doesn't change necessarily. Okay. But the financial decisions we make right now might have to shift a little bit. And that's just a priority thing, but that's not dishonoring what we're trying to build. And so if we've done that work up front, it's a lot easier to deal with those situations. They're still frustrating because we don't have control, right? And we feel like somebody's getting over on us in that example.
Yes.
But that's a way that the unified vision can help ground us into reality and still give us a hope for the future.
Right, right. That's really well said. I love that idea of, hey, this isn't a destination, but it's a direction.
Yes.
Because we can both begin to head that direction together, and that unity piece. I wonder, do you ever find that sometimes it's not so much us against whatever dynamic we're having to face, like the example that you just gave, but it is, well, I want this.
Yeah.
And you want that.
We
And
disagree.
now we're not necessarily united in that. What words of wisdom might you have when someone feels stuck in that space?
Yeah, so that's a tough part. And part of this process, I have a quote later in the book. Unity is not sameness. Okay.
Mm,
Doesn't mean we have to be identical.
yeah.
It's about how do we bring me, Brian, and Kara, my wife,
Mhm.
together as unique individuals, right? So we're unique individuals, but we're also creating this new entity, our marriage and our family. And
Yeah.
so um, we have, so part of the unified vision is building that. And later in the book there's like, how do we actually design a system to help honor
Mm,
that? I think most people don't want to be completely washed out in their marriage. They still want to hold on to their individuality. And I would think that their spouse wants them to do that too. To me, that's healthy, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like I love Kara for who she is, and I want her to be able to be herself.
Mhm.
So we have to come together and understand what those things are and make our ground rules that work for our family. And this is unique
Yeah.
to everybody. That's why this is so personal, because everybody's going to have different means, different philosophies, different values. That's why we have to start with understanding, where does my spouse actually come from when she does X with money, you know?
Yeah.
And um, I'd say Kara and I have done this very well. We're very open with each other. We do have some individual accounts, but we check in with each other a lot, probably more than we
Mhm.
need to. But
Mhm.
like I do it because I'm a runner.
Mhm.
And so I go through running shoes a lot.
Sure.
And I like to check in with her. I just bought two new pairs. They just came the other day. And I just
Mhm.
like her to know because one, they're not cheap, but they also take up space in the house.
You have a collection,
uh,
I'm hearing, Brian.
yeah, I do have a collection, and so
Right.
that's just something she and I worked through that for her was important, based
Mhm.
on her money history, and
Yes.
so I honor her that way. Now, does she think I always need to get new running shoes? Of course not. But we've worked
Right.
through it.
So for the listener who is thinking inside, okay, I get it. That unified financial vision that Brian's talking about makes sense. But like, what's the process? Like, how do we get down to the nuts and bolts?
Yeah.
Could you give us a really high level, just how would you walk through people all the way through the process where they feel like, wow, this feels like something we can do together?
Really, what I'm doing is I'm reordering how financial planning works today. Because
Mhm.
today it starts with the numbers. Okay. It's what type of account, how much do we put in, how much do I need for retirement or buying a
Mhm.
house or what have you. And we start there in traditional finance. But that leads us to some problems, right? In the first chapter, I talk about the permission problem. When the number's the goal and you reach that number, suddenly it doesn't feel quite safe to start taking from that number because now I'm going backwards. And I see
Yeah.
this
Mm.
time and time again with clients. When the number has been the goal, you achieve it, and then suddenly you're stuck. And it's like, well, what
Mm.
did we accumulate all this for?
Mhm.
And that's what happens when we put numbers first. So in the book, I've really flipped it on its head. First, we got to talk about money. Okay. And most of us have never really learned how to talk about money because it's
Mm.
uncomfortable. And Kim, like you said earlier, it carries a lot of emotion. And that's
Yes.
because we give it far too much power.
Mhm.
Okay. Money is a tool to use. That's it. And so that whole second section, how to talk about money, is
Mhm.
really about how do we give you back the power over
Yeah.
money so that you can take control and decide what your life's going to be rather than your money deciding what it's going to be. Okay.
Love that.
Mhm.
The next part is planning for the future. And it
Mhm.
gets a little more what might feel a little more traditional for people but it is very grounded in the unified vision and the why, that how we talked about money. You're really figuring out the why.
Yeah.
And so it is different. But I will tell you right now, and when I was editing this manuscript and Kara was reading it, she was very adamant that I'm clear about this. The numbers do matter. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not saying they don't. They act as a grounding mechanism, right? Because if we don't take into account your financial reality, then your unified vision is just a pipe dream.
Right.
On the flip side, that unified vision is a grounding mechanism for the numbers, and it gives you permission to actually use what you've built to accomplish your vision. Okay. So there's this tension, and that's a healthy tug of war that we all feel. We've just never had a framework before on how to use it. And then the fourth section is building a life you love. And I get a little more practical and tactical there, giving some ideas about how do we actually implement some of these things, or what are some of the things we need to do day to day. Really, I'm flipping it on its head. We're starting with the big picture. Why are we even doing any of this? If you can't answer that question, you're just going to be spinning your wheels and you'll end up frustrated.
Yeah, I love that, Brian. You're not eliminating the importance of traditional financial planning, but I love how you said, I'm just flipping that over, and we're starting at a new place where we're going to have a lot better luck actually building the life we love if we can figure out how we're going to be unified around the types of decisions that we're going to have to make over the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kim and I have been married for 25 years almost at the time of this recording. And we've had to make a ton of different decisions along the way when it came to finances, both big, really big, and small. And man, we've had a lot of disagreements.
We've struggled. It's not been easy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say maybe we're kind of toddlers right now, really figuring it out along the way. And hopefully we'll hit adolescence one of these days before we retire.
Because like most people, the point you just made there, Brian, is we never learned how to talk about money. We really didn't. And I think a lot of us make decisions around money based on guilt, unfortunately, especially when it comes to our children.
Yeah.
And we're not always doing a good job teaching them how to talk about money.
Absolutely.
If we did learn to talk about it, we learned that we don't talk about money, right? It's like, you don't talk about how much you make or whatever. It's awkward.
That's top secret stuff.
Super, And I know that's kind of how it was for me growing up, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So if a couple goes through this process, they build that unified financial vision that's not a destination, but a direction.
Yes.
And then they begin to bring alignment around these different decisions and the planning, and start saying, okay, what are the steps we're going to take to build the life we love? What do you notice shifts for these couples that you work with when they actually catch that and start heading that direction? What changes?
That's a great question. So the whole reason I've stayed in this business is because of the answer here. There's a moment with every client couple, and it varies how long it takes to get there. But there is a moment where you physically see them just like sit back and relax, and it's like this weight just comes off of their shoulders. And they can breathe, because now they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Not that there's really an end, but they see where they're going and that it's possible. Most of us, too many of us, go through and just not really understanding what's even possible. Whether that's because we're afraid to look, or we don't know how to look, or we've never really thought about. We're just living the dream, working, putting money away, and building up that nest egg for someday. But when they go through this process, I love that moment, because it's just, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and I mean, we want to experience that moment, right?
Yeah.
And we bet
Yeah.
that there's a lot of people listening who goes, "Man, that sounds really great, Brian. I want to experience that moment as well."
Yeah, instead of being in this survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can tell you're passionate about it, Brian.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
We
I
love
love
it.
it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting, sort of akin to that, like, okay, this feels good. You kind of redefine the word legacy. Tell us what legacy means to you when it comes to blended family finances.
Yeah. So, um, I think in traditional finance, when people talk legacy, they usually talk estate planning. How are we going to leave what we had left to other people? And that's important. And that's part of the book as well. But
Mm,
when I separated it out and I made legacy its own chapter because I think legacy is something we live right now. It's about how do we pass on what we believe and hope for our children, our grandchildren. And I share a story about my grandpa in there in that chapter, who I found out wasn't, he was my step grandpa, and I had no idea, but we were
mm,
buddies. And so I think there's this redemptive element in opportunity in blended families where you can actually start to bring your family tree back together. And I know personally, I don't know, I don't have grandkids. Hopefully someday I do. And they might be my step kids, right? So I'll be like the step grandpa, but I look forward to the day when they just look at me as grandpa,
mm,
and it just doesn't matter anymore, right? We've kind of come full circle as a family.
yeah,
That's one of the things I mean with legacy in
yeah,
there. It has nothing to do with money. I mean, money's part of it, right? But the
sure.
story I share in there, nothing to do with money whatsoever. It's about family.
Yeah, yeah,
Relationship. Yeah.
yeah.
Love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's about the daily experience of unity, not necessarily sameness, but
Yeah.
of unity and finding ways to collaborate and then maybe even making that visible to our kids and our grandkids so that they can see, like, how do we do this well?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what I'm hearing, Brian?
That's exactly it. Yep.
I love
That's
that.
beautiful.
I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good. Wow, Brian, we are super excited for this book to
We
launch,
are.
and we know that you already have your website up. So if somebody's listening and they're going, "Man, we need some help when it comes to our finances," and Brian sounds like he would be somebody that could bring value to that, where do people find you?
Yeah. So you can email me, Brian at blendedfamilyfinancial.com. Or you could go to the website, blendedfamilyfinancial.com.
I love that.
And there's some resources out there. All my blog articles that I've posted are out there. I have a
Hmm.
newsletter. I just do it once a month. Not a lot
Sure.
of not a lot of spam there.
Yep.
You can also still sign up to get the book. I'm giving away free PDF copies of the book.
Okay.
And on launch day, which I don't have yet, but we're going to do a promo for the Kindle version for 99 cents as well.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. So we need to get on your newsletter.
Yes, to
No
find out.
launch day hits and get that Kindle version for 99 cents. That's awesome.
that,
Hmm.
that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
excited.
Yeah. Very
Thank
excited.
you.
Brian, if you just had one word of wisdom to offer to couples who are just feeling the tension of money conversations, what would that one word, one sentence be?
You've got to decide. You've got to decide that you want to do it differently. It's
Mhm.
intention. One word is intention.
Yeah.
I love it.
That can change the whole direction of things.
That's so great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Brian, what a blessing to have you on. Thank you so much for the contribution you're
Absolutely.
making.
Yeah, we love what
So,
you're doing.
yeah, so excited
Thank
for
you.
this book to come out and just see how you get to contribute to the challenges, the unique challenges that us blended families face when it
Yeah.
comes to finances.
Yeah.
So
you
thanks
re-
for what you're
Yeah,
doing.
you really get it. So we love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Thanks so much.
course.
All right, Brian. Thanks so much. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.
What a rich conversation with Brian. We're grateful for his willingness to share, and we hope that you're going to take full advantage of the resources that he has to offer. We've had the chance to spend some time with Brian. We shared a meal, we got to connect and discover that he's just a genuinely great guy.
He is.
And the more we get to know Brian's heart, the more we want to connect him with blended families who need support around finances.
One thing we've learned over 25 years of blending, if you want to be successful in any area of life, you need to seek wisdom and help from others. You don't have to figure out all of this complicated stuff on your own.
That's right.
To quote Tony Robbins, asking for help is a crucial skill in life. It opens doors, builds relationships, and it accelerates growth.
That's right. So we encourage you to connect with Brian and discover new ways to talk about money, plan for the future, and build that life you love. So don't miss next week's Simple Step episode, where Brian will join us again and offer 3 questions that you can ask yourself right now to get started on building that life you love. All right, honey, I think we're going to make today a wrap.
Until next time.